as you're reading. So let's talk a little bit about literary analysis and what it is. If you break it apart into its pieces, it really is what it says. It's an analysis of literature. So what do we mean by analysis? Well, I think analysis is often a word associated with something scientific. Perhaps scientists analyze data and come up with a conclusion, or scientists in a lab analyze a plant or an animal and they dissect it and figure out what's wrong, or they do surgery on it to diagnose a problem. Well, in a similar way, we're doing an analysis, an in-depth digging apart, pulling apart the pieces look at literature. And in a lot of ways, it does involve pulling apart all the pieces and then putting back together through sort of a new lens or a new perspective. Of course, the literature review that we do and the literature analysis we do in this course is always viewed through the Christian worldview. It's always taken from the perspective that what does this literature have to say to us about how we see the world as believers in Christ? So I want to make sure you know that that's the perspective, of course, I bring, and I look forward to seeing that in your work as well, if that's how you choose, what you choose to include when you're discussing literature. And that's certainly part of it. It doesn't need to be all of it. I'm interested in your insights as well about how the author uses mood or colors or character names. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Analysis is really getting to the next level. It's digging deeper. And this happens when you spend some time with the text. So my first recommendation for this week's assignment is to select one of the 3 stories that are listed and take a first stab at reading it. And I would encourage you to read it early in the week, maybe even Monday or Tuesday, and sort of just let the ideas of the story marinate in your mind throughout the week. You'll be surprised at how much you are going to think about that you didn't consider if you're trying to do it all really fast. So take a few minutes. It probably won't take longer than about a half an hour to read one of the stories, and do that early in the week. I would encourage you then to go back a second time and read it again. And this time I would really encourage you to underline, circle, annotate your text. Ask questions. Look for patterns. Mark things that seem of interest to you, and look for ways that the author is making you think or leaving you wondering. And start to ask why. Why does the author do this? Why does the author phrase this way? Why is this character being portrayed this way? And when you start to find answers to those questions based on your reading of the text, then ask the questions again. Why do I think that? Why do I see that way? Is there more evidence here for my idea about this story? And just keep asking those questions and digging deeper. You'll start to look back on your notes and see a pattern and understand how you see the literature. And from there, you can move into writing a thesis about your idea about the literature. And for this assignment, I am going to be looking for a thesis statement that's clearly stated at the end of your introduction that gives your reader a perspective of your analysis of the literature. What is it that you think about the story? Now, for our course, CCU has given us 3 stories to consider. The first is titled A Monkey's Paw. The second is titled The Necklace. And the third is A Gift of the Magi. So I would encourage you to choose one of these stories and begin looking at it and reading it. Once you have read the story about 3 times, which is about how long it takes to really dig in, then I would encourage you to start to form an outline. Look for 2 or 3, maybe 4 key ways that you feel like the story illustrates your analysis of the paper. And you want to integrate those ideas from the text of the story into your own paper. For example, if you think the author is taking a humorous tone, you would talk about the humorous tone, and you might say the first example of the humorous tone happens when this character interacts with this character. And then you would actually quote from the text of the story to show how the author is using a humorous tone, for example. This can be challenging if you haven't done it in a while or if you haven't seen it done. So I've done a couple of things to help us along the way. The first is I have completed a literary analysis of the psalm that CCU gave us to consider this week as we're talking about literature. CCU uses Psalm 23 to help us get us thinking about literature, poetic language, and imagery, and understanding ideas. And since they include this psalm as a way to frame our discussion about literature, I thought it would be a good example of how to do a literary analysis. So I did exactly what I'm asking you to do. I read it several times, even though in my life I've read it hundreds of times. I took a look at it as a piece of literature, took notes on it, circled things, asked questions, made connections to things I had read in the past. And then I started to form an outline based on those notes that I had taken. And then I wrote a paper. And what I've done is put together a PowerPoint that walks step by step through how I did the analysis of Psalm 23, as well as a paper that shows you my thesis and how I integrated the information from the psalm or the quotes from the psalm into my paper to sort of illustrate my claims about the piece of literature. And I hope that this will help you see how one might approach a literary analysis assignment. The other thing I will do for this week is post a couple of sample papers for you to look at that were written by students in this course for previous sections. And hopefully this will give you a sense of what you're looking for, the kinds of things that make up a good, strong literary analysis. And you always want to think about how is the author putting all these pieces together to make me think? What is it the author's really trying to say to me? And many times it can be complex and different each time you read it. So that's a helpful way to think about the literature. I look forward to reading your papers this week, and I want to help in every way that I can. So please feel free to send me emails as you are thinking through the assignment. And please make note of the links that I post this week, because I'm hoping that the information will be helpful to you and help you be able to complete this assignment really well and feel confident about continuing to develop those great writing skills that you all have. So I look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you so much.